Hey, Kimberly. All right, thanks for getting this in. So here are your shots. Oops, sorry, she's not fitting entirely on the frame. Let me get her in there. All right, there we go. Nice studio, nice big studio to work in. So here I was looking at your contact sheets and I was looking at your settings because you do have you are capturing either some camera shake or some motion blur in the images with the fellow and the dog, and I know you were sensitive to that and you were trying really hard by blasting all of your lights in the situation to try and get your exposure settings to a point where you weren't going to be catching as much shake. So the magic number to get rid of camera shake and motion blur is 1/60th of a second. Best at 1/125th of a second, but 1/60th of a second is the cutoff. And so I was looking and it really, like, you're shooting really at like 1/15th, 1/25th of a second mostly. And so that is just too slow in portraiture. Really, your cutoff in portraiture is 1/60th of a second, and like I said, best 1/25th of a second. And so then I was looking at your other settings, and I noticed that you shot all of this at ISO 100. Now, a lot of times we're cautioned as digital photographers to shoot at a low ISO so that we don't have a whole bunch of digital noise. Now, depending on your digital camera sensors have come a long way in the last few years. So if you have a newer generation digital camera, it probably has a sensor that can shoot at ISO 400 without exceptionally bad digital noise. So consider that as an option, because that would be 2 stops more exposure than what you're getting right now, which means that at 1/25th of a second, you could speed that up 2 more stops, so you would be at 1/125th of a second now, and you would have still a good exposure. So consider that. Consider, you know, if you right now are always cutting yourself off at ISO 100, consider your cutoff 400. Just try it, because that would have solved your camera shake problem entirely. Also, I don't know what type of lens you're using for this. I don't know what your maximum aperture is, but the biggest aperture I see that you're using is 4, and of course that's still pretty small. If you have a lens that will shoot at f1.8 or between 1.8 and 2.8, that's what you want to be using with your tungsten lights inside, because the tungsten lights can, you know, they're only emitting 500 watts a piece, which isn't that much light, and then if you put a diffuser on it, that's, you know, the diffuser is taking away a stop or 2 of exposure as well. So you really have to just use the tools in your arsenal to get as much exposure as you can, you know. So if you have a faster lens, a lens that shoots somewhere between 1.8 and 2.8 aperture setting, use that when you're shooting portraiture with tungsten lights. And then also, you know, go ahead and bump your ISO up to 400. Unless you have a really old digital camera. If you have a really old digital camera, you might have problems at 400, but if it was made like in the last 5 years, really, you're probably okay. Okay, so that being said, let's go back to your shots. So here's where I see a lot of blur in this image. It's like so much blur that it's distracting to look at. However, that being said, you did do a really nice job eliminating glare from the glasses, because you just have 2 little bits of reflection, direct reflection right there and there. And you know, were you allowed to do post-processing in this class, that would be so easy to just clone right out. Or, you know, that would be the easiest thing in the world to get rid of. And wow, you let this guy smoke in your studio? I don't know. And then, but I do think the smoking kind of adds to the whole thing here. And then this one, and actually, you know what I see on this one is I see it's kind of fogged out, which means that there's some kind of light that's hitting the face of your lens glass perpendicularly. So you just have to be careful with that, because this could be crisper, because I don't see any camera shake or blur here. I just see that there's a glare running perpendicular across your lens right there. So you just have to be careful with that. Either that, or he's just filled your studio with smoke, and that's why it looks smoky. I don't know, maybe, I don't know. And then this is really a beautiful shot. I think that the aesthetic of the black and white works very nice here. I think that she could have been described with more character, with a higher ratio. You said that you shot her at about 1:3. Can I find that in here? You said, I can't find it. 1:2. Okay, 1:2 seems accurate. So you could have shot her at 1:5 maybe, and that would have described the topography and the expression in her face a lot, with a lot more drama, you know. And also, might have done some really interesting things to her clothing as well. And it might have helped you too with exposure, because then you could have put both lights on one side of her, and then, not that this was a problem. It looks like it was easy to get her to hold still. Okay, but yeah, I mean, you've got all these lights up pretty high, so that's giving you an even light ratio. And then here, it looks to me, it looks to me like these lights are just really far away from him. So that's another thing that you could have done, was brought those lights easily a couple feet closer to him in all cases. And all four of those lights could have been closer to him. And then because of the inverse square law, he would have been a lot brighter, and you wouldn't have had to worry so much about your exposure settings. So anyways, I think this is really your nicest, cleanest shot. She's in perfect focus. The background isn't at all distracting. It's really nice. And then here, like I said, there's something going on where there's like a haze or something. Maybe it's smoke, but I get the feeling it's a cross light. It's a light that's perpendicular to the glass face of your lens, and that's problematic here. And then here, we've got blur. But compositionally, this is a great shot, really. Like, this is nice, and the connection that he's making with us with his eyes is just really fantastic. I mean, it is very telling of his character. The dog is beautiful here. My dog has the same tag. Well, I guess there's PetSmarts all over the country, right? All right. Okay, thank you, Kimberly. I will see you in the next assignment.